Alright, so in this video, I'll be showing you how I would edit this pictures during the groom preparation. So with the white undergarments, wedding dress or um, or groom's white long sleeve. Sometimes we tendency to get this hot spot right here, meaning like overexposed, and using the XT3 dynamic range. I wanted to really test out how the dynamic range performs, even though we get an overexposed spot in the image. Um, the yellow accent light is coming from the lamp that the groom has at his place. Um, so basically, our main key light is the window, and him facing the window, we get that nice shadows fall off, coming off from his face, and the range of the light coming out from the lamp gives it a lot more like a 3D, the three-dimensional photograph, shooting this picture. So let me see how I would edit it, and let's move on with how the dynamic range is on this camera using the the raw files, RAF, from the Fujifilm X-T3. Again, when shooting in Fuji, it's very less likely I would touch the white balance, because as far as you can see, it's, to me, the skin tone is already perfect as it is. Even shooting in RAW, and even straight from the JPEG, it's already perfectly captured in a perfectly well toned, as far as the skin. So moving on, the first step that I would do is I would press auto, and once I have that, I have the computer decide on balancing the image, and from here the hotspot is pretty much gone, and from here I would adjust them one at a time, or a few here and there, to get the the way I would want my photograph to be presented. So here you go. I'm gonna start with the exposure, and dialing the exposure, making sure that I don't overexpose the white garments or white part. So there you go. As far as you can see this, that means you're overexposing already on the camera raw settings. So let me see if I can dial it down a little bit, or higher a little bit. So maybe half 0.05 plus, and I would play around with the contrast, highlights, tone down the white. So you see that when I dial the white portion, it would actually go away. So that's our goal, is to have that red part go away, because that's the hot spot. All right, so let's just see some blacks sections here, if I can dial it so that I get a nice contrast too. So if I wanted this to pop out, I would probably dial the clarity, but again, I don't want to use too much, because this is a young groom, and using too much would sometimes have the groom look old. So we don't want to do that. We just want to balance it all out. That way it wouldn't look way too contrasty. Okay. Another way I would edit this too is playing around with the dehaze options right here and see if I can dial that up and down. Okay, so to me, I think I do have a perfect property, well exposed photos here. But as far as the shadows, I probably played a little bit, just a little bit, so that I could see a little bit of the you know, the facial area right here, and you know, tone down the shadows part right here, so we can clearly see the groom's face. So there you go. To me, I think this is a properly exposed shot. Maybe a little bit on this side. Maybe this is a, you know, for me, I think this is a pretty good, you know, head start to finish off the photos. And again, this one is the distractions. Remember what I told you before. We have to make sure that, you know, any objects in the background, we make sure that it's nice and clean. If not, then, you know, we edit them and take them out in Photoshop, because once you see these photos right here, obviously what will your eye drawn into is this object right here, the square objects, and it takes you away from focusing with the subject. So there you go. I'll probably do some crop, since this is portions right here, it's a little bit off, so maybe a straighten, you know, way to do this too is to press this part right here. Will give you a straighten tool, and you just see so that this is not crooked. You would press from your click from your mouse and click, and then there you go. It will basically straighten that out. And this is the way you basically, the way I hold my camera. Maybe it's a little bit slant, and then I just fix this in the post, and this is how I would fix this. So I would double click, that way it's being corrected. So there you go. I think, to me, Fuji is a really nice skin tone rendition, you know, in addition to the camera gear that I'm using to accomplish my my workflow. And it just gotten much more easier for me, because then I don't have to mess around with the white balance and temperature and tint, because that's a headache, and it takes a lot of time to really dial that in. You know, when you edit a photograph, or even in video, it's really a headache and time consuming to kind of balance it all out, to kind of match all the frames in terms of the videos, or even in the pictures. I mean, you have, let's say, you know, 10 images of this type of shots, and you want to make sure that, you know, all those 10 are you know, matched, you know, each one of them, the color match, the shadows match, if you're at the same, you know, post, the same location. So make sure it'll all match. So what I'm trying to say here is that using the Fuji X-C3 and the color system, the skin tone is really true to life, and it gives a nice, you know, skin you know, rendition when you see the photograph. And I don't need to really mess around with the white balance so much. Also, another settings that I usually like to play around is the profile. If, let's say, sometimes, you know, I feel like I want it more saturated, maybe add landscape, but again, to me, I guess this is way too saturated for me. So again, depends on your taste. You could also tone it down, but I wouldn't recommend any photographs that's unsaturated, because, you know, the color is not popping out and it doesn't look like the person is alive, you know, when you edit those kind of you know, photograph. So let me see. The vivid is pretty good. I think it's it rendered pretty good in terms of like the contrast. Then it kind of make a shortcut playing with clarity and contrast and the haze in a short way. You just press the Adobe Vivid and it will show you that. Or the artistic, it's a little bit a different skin tone, a different approach into the photograph. Modern would be okay too. It's a little bit too the sepia type of color. This is the modern. Then vintage, okay, if you want to try some sort of a vintage photograph, then okay, then you can choose that, or vintage 10, maybe something different. But I'd stick with the Adobe Color or Adobe Vivid. Okay, I think I would like the Adobe Vivid, and then I would then say that, and you would really impress a lot of people, because again, the rendition with the skin tone and the practice of the available light is you're using that to make your photograph unique, and you make your photograph stand out. So again, my camera that I'm using, Fujifilm X-T3. The lens that I used is the Sigma 18-35 with f-stop of 1.82. I think it's f16 or 22, but over here we check the proper exposure, and this is what the result we get. 125 seconds, 640 ISO at a 2.2, basing from the environmental ambient light, and this is just an addition, the key light, and also the key light from the window, and also the lamp that fall off from the side of the subject. So there you go. Hope to see you in the next video. And again, I'm always excited to explore more with different cameras, and also explore the capability of the Fujifilm X-T3. And thank you for watching.